Welcome back for another helping of oysters, clams, and cockles. I am your host, Ross Bolin, joined today, as always, by your other host, Mr. Barrett Dudley, to bring you the best TV shows and movies weekly in an easily digestible podcast packed with laughs. Barrett, I took a day off yesterday for the first time in 2020. I took in some nature.
Yeah, I saw that on your gram.
Went out to the old Enchanted Rock.
Now, how far of a drive is that?
It's about an hour and a half.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
So it was a little day trip?
It was a little day trip to go out to a rock that's enchanted. It felt good. Then I got home, watched the finale of The Great.
Was this solo self-care, or did you have a buddy with you?
I had a compadre.
Okay, all right.
Yeah. Solo self-care, I can't be trusted in the wild. I can't be trusted to roam nature.
I didn't know if you just went full on, walkabout, Vision Quest,
like might never come back type of thing.
Rock, Joshua Tree,
Sure,
the whole thing.
Yeah, no, I didn't go that far.
Do some shrooms.
Maybe next month.
See some dinosaurs in that old rock there.
Not quite, but still enjoyed myself.
Yep.
Knocked out the finale of The Great. Very excited for today's show. You've also been outdoors. I saw you.
I have been
doing
outdoors doing man stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have been earning my beers, Ross.
You have.
And I tell you what, there's just nothing like, an icy cold one after you put in a full day of just using your hands outdoors.
Sure.
Getting her done.
That's
what I've been doing. I've been getting her done.
Were you wearing gloves when you were getting her done?
You got to wear gloves out there,
especially when you're handling.
I'm handling
wood.
I'm handling wood. I've got all sorts of posts and pickets.
You respect wood.
I'm drilling stuff. I'm sawing stuff. I'm using a circular saw.
Have you always been good at man stuff like this?
Well,
or is this a more recently learned skill?
I have a good background in man stuff. My dad is very handy.
You're an Eagle Scout?
And I'm an Eagle Scout, and so I took it all in. It's just that
You've never put it to practice.
I've never really put it to practice.
Okay.
This is not something, and let's be real. I'm not a guy that is like,
I'm gonna go build.
I'm gonna go build shit. It does that. You get a nice sense of accomplishment when you do this, but it's not something that I seek out.
You're not taking the rear differential off your car, putting it back on, or some shit.
I'm not taking off any rear differentials, and I generally have to be coaxed into doing this type of big laborious project.
Sure.
But once I'm out there, I can hold my own. I'm out at Home Depot renting the GD best breaker on the darn market, the Hilti.
Oh, hell yeah.
Hell yeah.
The Hilti.
And I'm getting that, I'm getting it done, busting up the rock. Do you know that down in South Austin where we live, all of our houses just sit on like a quarry, just like nothing but limestone.
Yeah, that's why we all have foundation problems.
Yeah, and it's just, and so you try to dig a 2-foot post hole down in South Austin, and it is a absolute nightmare. Because you're just trying to break up straight limestone.
Did you get a jackhammer going?
That's the Hilti breaker that I had going.
Oh,
yeah,
the breaker.
The breaker.
That is the fucking.
Yeah, it's like a lightweight jackhammer, basically.
A Hilti.
The Hilti. Yeah.
You know what's funny? I've got a little, not a full blown post like y'all had that you ripped out with your bare hands. Which, by the way, I saw on his Instagram at Barrett Dudley, where he was doing this manual labor man work and showing off the guns on the gram.
Yep.
I have a pole. All right. Like a hollow pole, right? But it was snapped off at the bottom. It's like somebody tried to do what you did, but they fucked up.
Right.
And so it's just this jagged pole. I might need a Hilti.
You might.
You still got the Hilti?
I had to give it back to Home Depot.
No more hours on the Hilti?
No more Hilti hours for me.
Son of a bitch.
We're on to just drilling in some fence pickets.
Well, I respect the grind and the hustle.
Yeah.
I see you out there doing this.
We got it. That's what there is to do right now, is being outside and getting projects done. So
hey, what better time to improve the old home front?
Exactly.
Yeah, we're starting out with everyone's favorite segment today, Tidbits and Such with Barrett.
Yes.
Then we're going to be covering the Season 1 finale of Perry Mason on HBO and kind of discussing Season 1 of Perry Mason as a whole. That's Chapter 8, of course. There was chapters to Perry Mason on HBO, not episodes, chapters. And then, Clam Fam, we will be reviewing Season 1 of Hulu's The Great together, finally, as I just finished the finale this morning. I started it yesterday, finished this morning. Very excited to discuss. But first, this episode of OCC is brought to you by Felix Gray glasses. Barrett and I both constantly have our faces in screens from morning to night. There's no cutting back now more than ever. All of us are relying on technology to get our jobs done, to stay in touch with family and friends. Screens are here to stay. They are unavoidable people. You have to protect your ojos which means eyes in Spanish. There are a lot of blue light glasses on the market, but they're not all created equally. Many blue light glasses don't filter enough blue light, especially in the range that matters. Screens produce most blue light at a certain point in the spectrum, 455 nanometers. Most clear blue light lenses only filter about 2 to 3% in that range. Felix Gray uses a proprietary filtering technology to filter 15 times more blue light in the same range. Too much screen time can result in tired, dry eyes, headaches, blurry vision, trouble sleeping. I've been wearing contacts and glasses since I was like 14 years old. Live in the allergy capital of the world, all too familiar with the symptoms that can come from too much screen use. But since I've been rocking Felix Gray's, specifically the Nash and the Faraday frames that I have, I love them both. My symptoms?
I always say the Faraday.
Relieved.
With the Faraday, it's going to be a good day.
Fair day indeed, Barrett. Felix Gray filters out 90% of blue light in the most damaging range and eliminates 99% of glare through a proprietary industry-leading lens technology only available with Felix Gray. 9 in 10 Felix Gray customers report significant symptom relief. Felix Gray frames are hand-finished from durable, super lightweight Italian acetate. With over 200,000 happy customers, Felix Gray isn't just the right choice, it's the only choice. You got to feel it for yourself. Slide on those Felix Grays, get that relief. It's going to blow your mind. Available in prescription, non-prescription, and readers. They have you covered with optical glasses for work and sleep glasses in the evening that are clinically proven to increase melatonin secretion when worn leading up to bedtime. And you can try them for 30 days risk-free by going to felixgrayglasses.com/OCC for the absolute best quality blue light filtering glasses on the market. That's FELIXGRAY glasses.com/OCC. Do what I did. Start taking care of your eyes. Feel better. Work smarter. Shipping and returns are totally free at Felix Gray. FelixGrayGlasses.com/OCC. And now, to open today's show, it's time for Tidbits and Such.
Oh, yeah. I got
with
some
Barrett.
tidbits. I got some such. Yeah. Okay. Let's start. I was scrolling Twitter this past week, and one of the accounts that I like to follow, it's a part of New York Magazine. It's called The Cut. And it's kind of this female-driven pop culture, entertainment, fashion, kind of everything in between. And they've always got fun stuff to read.
It says fashion, beauty, politics, sex, and celebrity.
Yeah, all of the above. So there was this post called "I Think About This a Lot: The Time Robert Pattinson Blatantly Lied on the Today Show." And it's this story about how it's a recalling of a time when Robert Pattinson went on the Today Show, and he was doing press for a movie called Water for Elephants. It starred Christoph Waltz and Reese Witherspoon as well.
I recall.
It's supposed to be quite a big deal. It was the only movie that he got out during his Twilight run.
Okay.
You know, it was the only like motion picture he did during that 4-picture run with the Twilight series.
And had Reese Witherspoon.
And had Reese Witherspoon, Christoph
Waltz,
Waltz, right off of Inglourious Basterds, I believe.
That's a hell of a cast.
So, the first piece of the tid, not the bit, is just when we do these top fives. We look at these lists, and a lot of the times, I'm left with this feeling, and by lists, I mean we look at these IMDb pages, right? We look at the filmography of various actors, and I'm like, man, like how did this person become so famous when there isn't all that? When there doesn't seem like there's that much massive stuff in here, right? You ever get that sense?
Yes.
Like, even looking at a page like Denzel's, where you're like, man, this dude has been in so many movies, so many great films. You look at some of this stuff and you're like, why don't I remember that movie?
Right.
This whole thing just got me to thinking. Water for Elephants, by the way, was kind of just ended up being a flop. Very forgettable. It didn't do anything. Nobody's ever seen it.
Never heard shit about it.
Never
after
heard
the
shit
previews,
about it. Yeah,
or the
pretty much.
Whatever, yeah.
It just
Trailer.
It got me to thinking how many films were supposed to be big deals that weren't.
Right.
And that, I mean, it's no one, like there's so many things that play into why all of these studios like basically don't want to churn out anything except for Avengers 19 and Fast and the Furious 11, right? Because it's all about low like risk management, and they just want to hit home runs. They want to be guaranteed a home run with all of this shit.
Once they have a franchise that works, they're like, this is the moneymaker.
This is the moneymaker.
Screw doing Water for
Don't want to do
Elephants.
anything else.
Yeah.
But it's just kind of interesting because I think that's really the thing. I think when we go back and we look at these lists, and you're like, nothing's standing out to me here except for one or two things. I think it's a lot of those movies were supposed to be big deals, or they were at the time for like a month or two when they released. There's just so many forgettable films out there.
Oh God, yeah.
So,
so you went through Robert Pattinson's IMDb?
I didn't even go look at it. It just now to finish the story, just the one that the cut reported on. He came on. He was doing Water for Elephants, which is about a circus, and Matt Lauer asked Robert Pattinson like what his experience with the circus was. Had he ever been? Yada yada. And Robert Pattinson goes on to just like bold-faced lie with a straight face for the entire segment about how he'd only been to the circus once when he was a kid, and a clown car exploded, killing a clown, and the entire theater and the entire like audience had to basically like evacuate and rush out of the theater because this clown had just died.
What in the Okay, so this ends up being
so also Robert Pattinson, I like him, and I think he's a super weird kind of quirky dude. But it's just I certainly did not recall this story of him just going on to, and you know I just like it when these actors kind of troll some of this inane bullshit that they have to do sometimes.
It's like it's
the Today Show is
a
bunch of bullshit.
Yeah,
Matt Lauer, you know, before he was a total dickhead, you know, predator.
Yeah, he was outed as part of the Me Too movement, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Was just a regular old, you know, douchebag.
Yeah, pretty
and
much.
So I like that Robert Pattinson came on this show and just made up a lie about and told this, you know, falsified story about watching a clown die at a circus.
This is the question he asked. Lauer followed up. How did he die? Pattinson answered immediately. His little car exploded. The joke car exploded on him. And apparently Lauer was like, are you being serious right now? And he said, seriously, yeah. My parents had to. Everybody ran out. It was terrifying. It was the only time I've ever been to the circus.
Yeah.
Wait, so how'd they find out this was a lie?
Because like 2 weeks later, when he was continuing the press tour, somebody else asked about this story, and he was like, "Oh no, I just made that up."
It reminds me of like athletes, how they have to do these
press
conferences and interviews after the fact. Like more athletes should do shit like this, just wrangle in insane, falsified, total fake stories.
Yeah.
What a weird.
But so interesting story, and also just got me to thinking about how many movies out there are like Water for Elephants, where they were in 2011, bunch of trailers, big name stars, was supposed to be like this big hit, and then they just were forgettable, totally forgettable. And that's a lot of films.
Yeah, no, and truly, every once in a while I'll stumble upon one where I'm like, that was pretty good. How come nothing ever happened with this? But most of them, it's like, it's just really, really hard to make a good movie or a good TV show, man. Like, we don't give enough credit to that.
Yes.
As a society.
So, on to the such now here. The two shows that we're going to be talking about today, The Great and Perry Mason, have both been picked up for second seasons.
Jackpot.
So, obviously, we'll probably be waiting a while for them.
Sure.
On the flip side, but they have been renewed. So, we will get more Perry Mason. We will get more The Great. Both certainly set themselves up to continue as well.
They did indeed.
Another show that also set itself up to continue and that I really enjoyed, put on my half-year top 5 list, has been canceled. High Fidelity on Hulu.
People are up in arms about this.
And not a lot of information has come out about this, but...
About why?
About why or how. Because by all accounts, it was we don't know we never get the viewership numbers on the streaming shows because they don't have to give them out. But by all accounts, was a pretty well-liked show. It had a pretty big star in Zoe Kravitz. And it didn't make it through to a second season.
Didn't get any Emmy noms.
What I have read, heard, listened to on another podcast, them kind of like dissect what probably was going on here. This is probably a casualty of the pandemic. It's shot on location in New York, which is super expensive to do. It had Zoe Kravitz, who probably has a pretty full schedule of things she's committed to.
Is she hot right now?
And it sounds like it's most likely. There's also some words in like the Variety or the Hollywood Reporter report on it that basically was like, there were ongoing negotiations, and it failed. It like was canceled amid ongoing negotiations. So I don't know if it was a money issue, a budget issue, contractual issues, or what. But I imagine that had we not been stricken with our nightmare scenario, that this show probably goes on.
Yeah,
because
it's had a lot of positivity.
It had a lot of positivity, and I know that all of these streaming networks are moving more and more towards operating like real networks, where they are very much like looking at the bottom line. They're looking at what this show brings in versus how much it costs them to make it. But at the same time, they also like to have these networks like to have this cool shit on the shelf, And that show, High Fidelity, with Zoe Kravitz in it, would have been an awesome one to have 3 or 4 seasons of, sitting in the Hulu vault that you can always come back to and always have. And so it doesn't, even if viewership wasn't huge, even if it wasn't like drawing in a ton of new memberships and doing that type of work for the streaming service, it still seems like one that they would have picked back up to continue. So I think that, I don't know.
It has to be outside circumstances.
It feels like outside circumstances, but it's a bummer nonetheless, because I really liked it. I was looking forward to seeing how they continued it, because that's the other piece of it, right? Like, there's the book, there's the John Cusack movie. Both of them end at the same point. So this was going to be the first time
that they've gone
that
past
like one of these kind of reboots or one of these interpretations of the novel like gets to go past and like really become its own thing.
Now, I haven't watched High Fidelity season 1. Do you think there's any chance that it was based on the I guess obviously a lot of factors could come into play, right? You just mentioned all of them: budgeting, contractual obligations, yada yada yada.
Yeah.
But with the way the season ended, did you have confidence that they were going to be able to do what has not been done before and take the story beyond the books and the other movie?
Yes, I did think they were going to. And I mean, small silver lining is that season 1 does end. It's an open-ended ending, like it certainly allows for like lots of possibility.
Right.
But it also does kind of wrap up the story
in a way that's
at
least pleasing.
So it's at least sort of pleasing. It definitely leaves you wanting more, but it also kind of finishes up that chapter. And so,
the thing that really surprised me about seeing that news that Hulu had chosen not to go forward with or wasn't able to get to go forward with season 2 of High Fidelity, it's not as if Hulu is one of these networks that has 40 shows backed up in their archive as classics that people would roll through or whatever. And as we've talked about this past couple years before the pandemic, we had sort of hit this place where these networks, Hulu, Netflix, Amazon, they're putting out as much as they can to get this massive catalog that keeps people locked in, right? And what's surprising to me is it's typical with great shows that your first season is not the best, and then they build from there, right? So it's like if you had canceled The Sopranos after season 1 or The Wire. I mean, there are shows where, and I'm not saying either of those first seasons weren't great. I'm just saying as examples, I feel like you really don't know sometimes until a few seasons in what you have in terms of longevity and in terms of where it will sit in the great history lexicon of television. And so it's a shame to see that opportunity sort of go to the wayside.
Indeed. Final piece here, final bit. We have come to an early agreement, you and I, to watch Yellowstone.
We're going to do it, finally.
Yes.
After probably a year and a half of people screaming at us to watch Yellowstone and me continuously screaming back, I can't. My dog Bruce won't let me. I have decided to take steps to make this possible.
Yeah.
He will be spending time in the living room alone as I watch in the bedroom.
Yeah. So
he doesn't like horses, to be clear.
We're going to be benevolent here, and we're going to keep the Yellowstone talk even through the first 2 seasons, which are now old seasons, here on the Out of Base show. And we're wrapping up 2 shows today, so there's a solid chance that we might break into a little talk next week for this show.
It's entirely possible.
It's entirely possible. So
both the things we were watching.
Yeah, I'm very much looking forward to it. The reviews have been phenomenal. You guys have been barking at us for a long time that we needed to watch the show, that we were dummies for not watching it. And so we're finally picking up this torch and something to look forward to.
Probably the show that I have not watched. I'm trying to think if there's any others that this is the one I'm probably most excited about that I've never got the chance to dive into, that seems directly up my alley. I know the general premise of the show. Obviously a big fan of some of the actors in the show.
Yep.
Seen plenty of great things come from some of these people.
Yep.
And yeah, I'm stoked. Remind me, what network is it on?
It's from the Paramount Network, but we're now able to watch it from Peacock.
Ah, Peacock.
Now, might be something that I get into tonight. I will let you know if watching it through Peacock involves commercials and how many.
Okay.
I don't know.
Can I make a peacock noise?
If you can make a peacock noise. Okay. Yeah.
We had a peacock outside our office for several years,
we did.
and so I'm not too bad at it.
Yeah.
Excited as hell to finally dive in. I wanted to mention one thing about Robert Pattinson.
Yeah.
He's obviously in Tenet.
Yes.
Do we know when we're getting that yet?
We do not.
Also, he's in The Batman.
He is the Batman.
And he's playing Bruce Wayne.
Yeah.
Which is going to be, when it was announced, obviously was an interesting mixed bag of responses to that. I have faith in this cat.
I do too, and I think that. I think I'm correct here. Neither of us have seen Good Time yet, although you did watch Uncut Gems.
Correct. I keep seeing the damn. It's on Netflix, right?
It's on one of the streamers.
I think it's Netflix, and I keep seeing the fucking little square with it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, soon.
Yeah,
soon.
for sure. But I think that was certainly one of the first films where it was like, oh shit, this guy has got chops. This dude can be really cool on screen.
It is on Netflix.
Does have skill, and yeah. I mean, like, so I'm excited to see him kind of go through his own renaissance here, where he gets to do the big budget flick in like a dark superhero role. I'm obviously very excited about Tenet when eventually it's available to go see. So yeah, the Pattinsons.
The Pattinsons could be coming. Tenet's release date now looks like it's September 3rd, 2020. I don't know if that's
weekend action.
It's been delayed
We'll
three
see.
freaking times.
Yeah.
I don't have a whole lot of confidence that we're going to get to see that this year.
Yeah.
But all right, well, was that all the such?
That's all the tid, the bit, and the such.
Love it.
Gave it to you all.
I
left it all out on the floor.
Oh, we appreciate that always. Let us dive in and close out Perry Mason Season 1 with Chapter 8. We came to a close this past Sunday night of Perry Mason, HBO's new L.A. noir detective series based in, what, the 50s?
30s.
30s. I was close. And, man, I'll say this. It didn't go the way I planned or that I anticipated. It was sort of like, we'll just dive straight into it. And if you haven't finished Perry Mason, obviously, you skip to the next segment. The mistrial was the first thing where I was like, okay. Because that's not a definitive win or a loss. You can be tried again pretty much immediately, which I think the DA would have a full intention of doing.
So, from what I understand about mistrials, based on both things I've seen in pop culture, TV, film, and also in real life, when there is a mistrial, especially for a case that would have been big like this, it is generally not retried because, A, the city and the DA just spent a ton of money prosecuting the first time
and failed to get a charge.
So it's
a conviction
to get a conviction. So one, it looks bad. It's not a good look. That certainly one of the reasons why they went that direction, because they're setting him up to get replaced eventually by this Harrison Berger guy. I would expect.
The dude that's helping out.
The assistant DA who's gunning for his job, for Stephen Root's job.
Oh, okay, the guy she kept meeting with in the coffee shop.
Yeah, he wants
the DA
job.
That's where he's going to come in.
Yeah.
Oh, shit.
So while he can say we definitely intend to retry it, his bosses probably would be like, no, you failed.
And he's probably going to lose his job.
That's why he might not get reelected. But that's kind of the implication of a mistrial, is that the city won't retry it because it's too expensive and it doesn't look good to do so.
Okay. It says
you clearly didn't have a good enough case the first time around. what makes you like that type of thing.
Right. A mistrial. If a mistrial is declared, according to the internet, one of three things typically happens: the prosecutor dismisses the charges, a plea bargain or agreement is made, or another criminal trial is scheduled on the same charges. And it's obviously circumstantial based on how that first trial went, why it became a mistrial, what went wrong. What we find out in the case of Perry Mason, Chapter 8, is that not only was there a mistrial, it was because there were 3 jurors who could not be swayed, and one of those 3 jurors was actually being paid off
Playing dirty.
by Strickland.
Yeah.
Our boy was out there making it happen. Now, did you get the impression that Perry knew about Strickland's actions?
That's what they're meeting on the bridge to talk about. When he's like,
Oh,
you said you
shit.
were almost out of moves. What's like? He was
Oh,
like,
my
so what-
God. Okay. Okay. I
So
thought he was referring to putting her ass on the stand.
Yeah, no, that's I mean, they head faked. They head faked you that way.
They
But
pump faked the shit out of me.
and then it comes back around that they were cheating, that they played dirty,
What? And they didn't even need to.
and that they ended up not needing to.
Now, I wonder if Strickland told Perry that bit of it. Because when, obviously, the juror that they bribed reveals to Strickland,
Right,
I would just want to know if I got paid the same as these other
right.
2 people. And he's like, what other 2 people? He's like, you mean I was the only one getting paid? He's like, by golly, that's great. Like, they would have had the mistrial anyway. He's like, hey, you guys didn't even need me.
Yeah.
And Strickland's just like, fuck.
Yeah, so I think that I liked that piece of it because it's adding to this whole new Perry Mason, who's not as good of a guy, as clean cut, as black and white as he was on the old show.
Right.
Apparently, another reference to the old Perry Mason. You know, we open, right? It's the opening where he's like in the courtroom doing his dance and he's yelling at Ennis and he's getting Ennis to crack. So in old Perry Mason episodes, everybody confesses on the stand because Perry Mason is such a great lawyer.
Okay.
Like, he goes up there, he does his thing. He
And they're like, I
traps
did
him.
it. I did it. It was me.
I did it, I tell you, and I do it again.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry or I'm not sorry. But either way, it was me. Okay.
Yeah, so that apparently happened a lot in
So
the old
that's
Perry
why
Mason.
they had the line, nobody ever confesses on the stand.
So Berger, the guy who's also from the old series, is like, nobody ever confesses on the stand. It's like a wink-wink moment.
Ah, okay, cool.
Yeah.
They also worked in the old theme music from the television show, apparently, according to my dad.
Yeah, so they've been doing that throughout, but they certainly played it a lot in like some moments in this final episode, and I don't know how it hit for me. I liked it and I didn't like it.
Yeah, honestly, the whole finale,
It feels so old timey.
I like that element of it, though.
I can't do it.
I like that element of it, though.
Yeah.
But, you know, I'm huge into the weird LA noir vibes of this entire thing.
Right.
But this finale as a whole, I mean, it was just, I guess, lacking in closure.
Well, right, because we get the mistrial. They don't actually get her acquitted.
We don't find out what is going to happen
They
next
don't
with her.
put Ennis on the stand. Ennis ends up getting got by his own guy.
Yeah, what the shit?
So-
Which tied into, like, maybe making it look, because wherever he got out there,
That was at the Lucky Lounge. That was the casino. That was the outskirts of the casino.
no shit. Okay,
Yeah.
so his partner decides, like, this dude's too much of a liability. He's fucked this whole thing up. He's a psycho, perhaps, and he's got to go?
Yeah.
Or was there a higher power behind that? Because you get the impression almost.
So my read on that was, and I mean, I actually haven't even read a recap yet.
I haven't either.
That'll probably help. But so originally, Holcomb is surprised that Ennis was a part of this, right?
Right.
Now this kind of makes it seem like we're not so sure. Like, did he kind of know about this?
Because this is he goes from, like, approaching Ennis about it a few episodes ago, being furious, to being like, who all knows about this that we need to kill?
Yep.
And you're like, oh, God, wow.
So
to straight up taking Ennis out.
Alternatively, he might just now have the knowledge that Ennis was the murderer. There's a mistrial. This is a loose end now.
that would make the department
like
look bad.
they can, if they went to another trial, for example, the defense could keep digging on Ennis.
Good point.
Get him to talk or do a plea bargain or
who knows
any of that type of thing. That would reflect poorly on Holcomb.
He goes ahead and takes care of it.
So he just takes care of it.
In a brutal fashion.
Very brutal fashion.
Literally watched this, which is nice because Ennis was a total shitbag, so you want to see him go in a terrible way. But the way he calmly stood there and watched it happen as these three guys drown out Ennis in a pond really gives you the impression that Holcomb
is the big bad, basically.
Is perhaps worse than Ennis even was.
Exactly. Yeah.
Which doesn't bode well for the future.
Exactly. And that I also certainly felt that this guy is going to be the one that's around for next season as a crooked cop. Yeah.
A problem. Yeah. Outside of that, Emily Dodson ends up joining Mother,
yes,
to do the Renaissance tour.
Go back out on the tent circuit.
The tent tour with fake Charlie. She's just like, well, fuck it. My life's screwed. I'll take this kid and go do this nonsense, fake religious crackpot nonsense with you. Mm-hmm. That was weird. Sister ends up working at a diner. What did you think about the decision to close out the season with Perry and her sort of talking in this wherever location where he discovers that she's now incognito, changed up the hair, working as a waitress, trying to find a normal life away from all this shit? And then why did he feel the need to sort of update her on her mom's whereabouts, what they're doing? It made me wonder if they're going to tie that into season 2 somehow. Like, will she be a part of trying to stop that sort of religious craziness or what?
I don't know.
It was an interesting choice, though, because it was obviously that was such a huge part of this season, right? Sister's story, everything going on with that church, the Radiant Assembly of God, was such a huge part. And then it really just ends up sort of fizzling out in a way that I didn't anticipate.
Yeah. Now we do the Radiant Assembly, the rest of it ends up getting prosecuted and charged for all of their bad stuff that they're doing.
Right.
That's what Strickland goes on to help Berger with now that he's a lead investigator for the assistant district attorney. And that they kind of montage that in there at the end a little bit. Strickland
working for diner meeting guy who is gunning for the new DA job.
Yes.
Wow, that really puts us in an interesting position for season 2 with Strickland and Perry's relationship.
Exactly. So we were all worried that Strickland was going to get got here.
Different kind of getting.
I think once he didn't get got last episode, I was like, okay, something's going on here. It's weird to kill Shea Wiggum in the first season anyway, especially on an HBO show where he's fam.
He's a regular.
And so I was wondering what they were going to do with that. And now
I love it.
Now we kind of know Strickland is joining the other team.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That's going to be wild to see how that plays out in season 2.
So Drake comes on, fills the Strickland role, formerly the Perry role even.
Yes.
And
a lot of changing places in this season.
And now we've got that little team with Perry, Della, and Paul Drake, and then Strickland and Berger over on the other side working for the city.
Have to imagine that season 2. Now the guy who played the DA, also an HBO regular.
True.
Have a hard time seeing him back, though. I would imagine they just go straight. You know how they'll do some time.
Yeah, whether they jump or not.
Maybe the other guy's just straight up already the DA and Strickland is his assistant.
Could be.
Or if they do something with the running against that guy in the next one, who knows?
But anyways, back to your back to the ending there with Sister Alice and Perry. Were you getting like romantic vibes at all?
A little.
Okay.
I mean, they
were both like talking about how they're alone. Do they have to be alone? I don't know.
Those
I don't
questions certainly lent themselves to viewers wondering about, was there a connection between these two people, especially after Perry's sort of love interest in the season ends up like buying his house out from under him and turning it into an airfield or whatever the fuck that was about. That was just bizarre to see on. She went from being like a cool, unconventional sort of love story for this main character to like totally fucking him. And I mean, explaining it, being like, look, I don't get a lot of shots at this.
Gotta look out for number one.
Look
baby.
at my position in society. This is what I have to do. He's just unable to forgive her based on the circumstances. So I don't know. I sort of felt that sexual tension between Alice and Perry a little bit or whatever. I mean, they end up talking like out on this like cliffside or whatever, right? Just sort of like and closing the season on them too. Again, it made it feel like there was going to be more to their relationship. Like, why end with her if she's not going to play into the next season somehow or in some way? Or I don't know. I don't know if they'll go the romantic route or if she'll be part of, like, helping him better the world in a different, redeemable way for her. Because this is obviously her whole life has been this massive charade, basically. I don't know. Couldn't get a feel for it. Love the way Paul Drake's story ended up. Him turning in his badge with the bribe money and just becoming Perry's number 2 guy, basically, for investigative purposes. We sort of saw that from 4 episodes ago, kind of coming towards that point. Glad it happened. I mean, all in all, I thoroughly enjoyed this season of television. It was very good. I thought it didn't stumble necessarily. It just like closed on a bit of a whimper for me. I guess I expected some more fireworks. I thought maybe he would pull some ace, get her completely off the hook. Not a mistrial, not guilty.
I think that, I went in with probably similar expectations, and I think that the show subverted those expectations very much on purpose.
Which I'm cool with.
It adds like this layer of reality. It adds this nuance to the show that it wants to operate more in these gray areas than it does on like this black and white. It doesn't give you that big courtroom moment where he breaks down Ennis, gets him to crack, and like it's that feel good thing where Perry's, courtroom chops get him the victory, right? Not only do they not get that, but they were out on the back end paying off a juror to make sure that it happened, to make sure that they at least got the mistrial.
Right.
So very much we're still we're getting more into that noir genre where even the good guys are
crooked,
get their hands dirty a little bit.
Yeah.
And so I think that bodes well for the show going forward. But you certainly, I did expect more of like that big kind of crashing moment where everything really comes to the head.
Now, I'd say based on the success of the first 7 chapters and the 8th not being bad or something I didn't enjoy, just a little less pop than I expected, all things considered, and the fact that they've been renewed for a season 2 probably gives season 2 more gravity for me and more excitement and hype for me to see where they take it from here based on the complicated, complex nature of the ending of the first season and the way that they did sort of turn it on its head for us, not really give us some of the things we expected or wanted to get, and then set up all these other wild outside circumstances. Now, how they continue to work religion and the whole mother and whether or not we even see her.
My guess is that we're finished with Sister Alice and the Radiant Assembly.
It would just be weird to continue to drag the main the mother of Charlie. What the hell's her name?
Yeah, right.
My mind
right.
Now. Back
Emily,
into season.
Emily Dodson.
It'd be weird to drag Emily Dodson into season 2.
I think that's done. Obviously, like I said up top, I do not think that there will be a retrial of that. I think that he's just posturing there at the end, saying that of course they will, trying to make a loss look like a tie at the very least. And there was finality to that moment there at the end between Perry and Sister Mason. Like there's no indication that they will remain connected.
Sister Alice,
right? Sister Alice,
okay.
Yes, yeah,
right.
Perry.
There is no indication.
Like they have that little chat. He asks her how like this whole thing could happen. They were her church basically was party to murdering a baby, and yet she still has so much faith. How does that work? Mm-hmm. And I guess that that all had the poetic kind of
religious tie-in,
and also kind of spoke to the justice system is so corrupt, right? Like how do you believe that? How can you actually believe that it works?
Right.
So
it goes both ways. The religious side corrupt, the political side or the justice side corrupt.
Yeah.
That was interesting.
But you buy in and you put your faith in it because it's what you believe in.
And she said to him at one point, like, you want to believe in him so badly, don't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, there was some good lines in there too. Matthew Rhys as a whole, as his performance in this season, what were your thoughts on him as Perry Mason? How did he do?
I really, really liked him. Like we talked about earlier in the season, like I have a very hard time imagining Robert Downey Jr. having tackled this role as well.
Yes.
And with so much just like innate kind of sadness in him.
Robert Downey Jr. is hard to see him as anything other than Tony Stark now.
Now, I would have loved to see it because Robert Downey Jr. is a great actor. He's got some of that in him. He's just been like he's been the quirky, sharp-tongued, Iron Man, Tony Stark guy for so long that it's really hard to picture him outside of that.
Yeah. I thought Reese did phenomenal.
I agree.
In terms of the mixed bag of like good guy, complex guy, the past that they drug in the first few episodes showing us some of the World War I shit, him being willing to get his hands dirty, taking EB's spot as the attorney representing this woman. Like it was all, everything he did, it just felt accurate.
Yeah,
felt real.
It was good. There were a couple of moments here in the last episode and maybe in the last two where he kind of goes into like this like super frustrated yelling monologue.
Kind of freaks out on people.
Kind of freaks out. It felt, if I'm critiquing, I would have pulled it back a bit.
A notch. Yeah, there was a lot of frustration.
Because it felt, whenever you get those like big blow-ups like that, you're always riding this fine line between like being really theatrical and being like true to life. Right. And so sometimes it was riding that line very finely for me.
I agree with that. There was a few standout moments of his blow-ups where you're like, geez, Perry, chill the fuck out. These people are helping you.
Yeah.
Why are you always freaking on the squad, bro? Yeah, thought he was great. Stephen Root was phenomenal.
All in all, a really fun season of television. I think we were both very, very just charmed by the whole 30s LA noir setting. And I hope this show can come back sooner rather than later because I'm looking forward to seeing who the new client is, right? New mystery lady.
Yeah.
Up in the office.
She's just a hot blonde who comes in and says,
she can pay the retainer, baby.
I'm in trouble.
Yeah.
But I can pay the retainer. And he's like, you're in. Everybody did a great job with this one. Chris Chalk was awesome. Shea Wiggum was awesome. John Lithgow was awesome.
Julia Rylance as Della
was
very,
phenomenal.
Very good.
Andrew Howard as Detective Innes was so fucking hateable. So evil. Stephen Root as Maynard Barnes, just unbelievable. The writing on this show was great. All in all, ended up being like a solid B- for me, I think. Like an 82 or something out of 100 because of the, it didn't do anything too special and new.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
It was very good throughout. Just a solid ending, not spectacular. It's not a show where the finale of the first season and I sat there like mind blown.
Right.
But it was solid.
Yeah. And I do think that show, I think this show will be, that's what I think it's going to ride. I think it's going to ride that that solid B- B+ area. I don't think it's trying to do anything too crazy. It's HBO's version of a procedural.
And yes, exactly. And it's important that they knew that and that they stayed in that lane. They didn't try to bust out and do some shit that would ruin the whole damn thing or fuck up the story. They stayed in that lane. You're right. HBO's solid LA noir style procedural. They've got a season 2. They've got a whole bunch of characters lined up from season 1 that we get to play with.
Yep.
We saw a big bad removed. Clear that other big bad guys are out there. We've got great setup between Perry, Strickland, the potential new DA, who's currently assistant DA gunning for the job. Everything that we saw sort of unfolding in season 1 came to a close in a way that would set it up to do new shit in season 2. Mazel mazel.
Yes.
Let's talk about The Great.
Huzzah.
Indeed. The Great, season 1.
Mm-hmm.
Last time we spoke, I think I was 5 episodes through.
That's correct. You were halfway.
So obviously I had met all of the characters.
All of them.
And everything had been set up where Catherine was clearly going to try to make a move on the old emperor here.
Yep.
And get rid of his insane ass, which he maintained. Like he almost becomes more crazy when he starts to fall in love with her. just because he's so deranged and insane. But one of the things that we had discussed prior about Peter the blank, played by Nicholas Hoult, was that his character is both horrifying and lovable.
Yes.
He is a monster, yet you cannot help but smile at some of the obscene, ridiculous, offensive things he says and does. That becomes even more complicated as the season progresses and as he starts to develop less sociopathic and more like regular human tendencies and feelings. When he starts to fall in love with her and he's like, I have a strange feeling. Like, he can't even explain to her like and then he's like, I think I'm falling in love with you.
I got that old-timey, old-fashioned feeling, Harry, where I'd do anything to bone her.
They're fucking... She's so thrown off by his like emotions and stuff. The first moment we see that, of course, is after his Peter's aunt gives him a tongue trick to go down on Catherine.
That's right.
It's the first time we see her like, uh-oh, this is problematic. I enjoyed that. And then that sort of progresses from there as she does her job too well. She tries to play Peter by basically mimicking his ideas, behaviors, even his speech patterns, the way she starts to talk to him and present crazy ideas that he's like, I love that idea, wife. Huzzah. Like, it just gets... She does it so well that he literally starts to fall for her. And the entire thing, this whole massive plot that she has put out to get rid of this guy, to make Russia better, to take the throne, take Russia into a new age with arts and science and learning and freedom to some degree. Helping the serfs out. It all gets completely derailed in the end as there's just like all these people who you thought were on the same page just fail to execute at the same time. Really, the biggest thing being that her lover, what's his name?
Leo.
Leo, played by Sebastian de Souza, or Souza, I don't know, chokes hard by accidentally letting it out of the bag to this random, whatever, fucking not a serf,
Aristocrat.
lord, a random lord, aristocrat, whatever, that it is indeed Catherine who is behind this coup, resulting in him having to beat the man to death with a rock, which really unravels the entire thing from there. In the end, it's the maid, her maid friend, who is her closest friend in the whole season one, who is the biggest betrayal. When she decides that her becoming a lady again, we had discussed how her father had put her in a position where their family lost their standing in the court. Well, it turns out what her father did was actually have sex with Peter's mother's corpse in front of him, which was one of the funnier and most disgusting things I've ever seen in my life. Becoming a lady and restoring her place in the court is more important to her than Catherine's safety, than Catherine's new Russia. She just wants her freaking life back, man.
Yeah, and there's a lot. I mean, look, to her credit, she also does not break until
things have started to go awry.
Gone horribly wrong, and this is not working the way they planned it to.
Sure.
So it's looking like Catherine is on the losing side here, and there's a chance for her to save her skin and
so
have her ladyship restored. So she does. So it's not a full-on, like, it's a betrayal, but there was I certainly,
with reasoning behind it.
There's reasoning behind it, and it's really self-preservation more than anything.
Yeah,
it's not like she didn't nip it in the bud. She didn't go straight to Peter right before they were going to launch the coup and be like, "Hey, you're about to get overthrown, and I'll tell you who's about to do it if you restore my status."
Yeah, but
it's really like, oh my God, this is all going to hell. We're all going to be murdered. I have a chance to save myself and get what I want. So
she goes and keeps Orlo from being able to assassinate the Archbishop, basically. Turns that into a fight rather than a straight-up assassination.
Yep.
The part that made me angry at her was when she reveals to Peter the extent of their plotting and planning, where she shows him the wall behind the pulled back curtain, and you're just like, that felt like such a betrayal.
That's fair.
That I was just like very obviously supposed to be, but put off by her character and her choice to choose selfishness over the greater good.
Right.
Which is the thing that Catherine kept trying to pick, was the greater good, even if that did mean that she was the choice. Obviously, that benefited her. When she walks away from Leo in the woods, she's out there, she says goodbye to him, basically, and knowing that full well there's a good chance he's going to be murdered.
Yep.
Then Leo ends up on a hunting party with Peter, Grigor, whatever, and Grigor, excuse me, it is an I. And then they go to assassinate him, and he takes like a shot in the freaking shoulder and then the knee. And they're like, well, now we can't kill him. It'll look terrible. And then she'll be angry. Like, she'll know this wasn't a hunt. I love how he tries to frame everything up as accidents. He was going to do her with a carriage accident.
Yeah.
Was going to do Leo with the old hunting accident. But we don't get closure on what happens with Leo. It just is basically them talking there still. We don't know if he's going to end up dead.
It's pretty... Well, you're right. We don't know. As we learn from Game of Thrones, if we don't see a body, they're not dead yet. Stannis, he's still out there, right?
He's still out there, man.
But I
Go
would,
on, then.
I
Do
would
your
certainly presume that is the end for Leo.
Man, that'd be sad.
And one of the things that one of the things that I wanted to say, wanted to talk about here, is one of the reasons that I loved the show, and as I said on our Patreon episode where we covered some of our favorites from the first half of the year, like this show really had everything for me that I was so excited to watch it. I laughed out loud at parts of this show. It was very dramatic. It had an amazing story, amazing writing, which we talked about for the first 5 episodes. And at the same time, like I was nervous every time I put on a new episode because Leo was in the crosshairs pretty much for the entire back half of the season. And so you kept having this sense, right? Their relationship is going too well. She's too happy with him.
Yeah.
It cannot possibly continue. Things have to go wrong. This guy is probably going to be a casualty.
The cunnilingus being the first step of the way there.
Yeah. And so that undertone was always with me every time I put on a new episode, and that's part of why it was so great, because it's giving you so much. I think that, I mean, the end there too is just very, very poignant and sad and emotional, as she essentially has to say that Russia is her great love, not Leo. You know, she thought it was going to be him.
I know I can change the world.
Yeah.
Sorry, guy.
Yes. And so he's on board with it. He understands. It's this big, climactic moment, which I thought hit really well. And it really fit with all of his, basically being a nihilist. Yeah.
He was just there for the, as Orlo put it, drinks and snacks.
Dude, everybody needs a drinks and snacks guy.
It's fair. I thought he was great drinks and snacks.
Shout to Hot Pie. He's going to bring the charcuterie board for you, man.
This guy had great vibes, man.
Such good vibes. He was awesome. And I just finished up Normal People last week as well, and he's got a small role. He's got a couple episodes. And it was really, really, it gives you a lot of insight into him as an actor, because he basically plays the same role in both shows.
Oh, no shit.
But he like dials up the charm a little too much in Normal People. It's fascinating to watch, because he's so likable, he's so charming, he's so sweet in The Great, and then he kind of plays this very, very similar role, but he's a total douchebag in Normal People, and you don't like him.
Oh, no shit.
So it's very,
you root for him on one, not on the other.
Yeah, really, really like good, like just tweaking the dials to really play the nuances there and make you love him or hate him. One episode specifically that we have to talk about and bring up is the Meatballs at the Dasha.
Yeah.
Where Peter meets the person that he is having a war with.
The Swedish king.
The king of Sweden. And they proceed to have an hour-long bro-down, which is just the most fun episode of television maybe I've watched this year. Like,
the second they were pulling up in the boat, and you see that they have striking similarities in fashion and whatnot, and he sort of looks at Catherine and like looks back at them, you get the feeling of where this is going. And I was like, from the second, I was like, oh my God, this is genius. It was, so much of this show was so well written, witty, and genius, but that episode in particular was one of the funniest things, like you said, that I've ever seen on TV, period, in terms of one episode in a capsule. Dude, he was like, we've just seen fish jumping out of the water. We should get pistols and go shoot them. And he's like, genius, huzzah. Like, you're just like, oh my God. And then you get Catherine talking to the Queen of Sweden or whatever, Empress, I don't know. And she's basically saying the opposite of what happened. Like, Catherine is trying to bring science and learning and a printing press. The Swedish lady is telling her, my idiot husband brought science and learning in the printing press, and now all the people want to kill us, basically. Like that knowledge and all that they gave to the serfs was a bad thing, and Catherine's standing there like, oh. No. Also, her being like, she was sort of the Peter, the Empress of Sweden or whatever, was sort of the Peter of their relationship. She asks her point blank, like, your husband is very handsome. Would you mind if I? And she's like, you mean... You like, I guess not. What the hell?
Yeah. But I thought that episode, that's 8, that was really like the peak of you cannot help but like Peter a little bit.
Yeah.
He's such the word that I always come back to with the show, like he's such a dolt, you know?
He's boyish.
He's so boyish and fun loving to an extent. Also has like this sick side to him, sociopathic side to him,
and we get reasons for that.
It's so funny, like he's so funny with it, and he's just like like I hate that he wasn't nominated for an award, because I just thought I thought his performance, especially both of the leads, absolutely phenomenal.
It is horseshit that he was not nominated.
But he is just so, like, Catherine, very likable from the get-go, right? Like, you really empathize with her, you love
rooting
her,
for her the
love
whole
her
time.
story, you're rooting for her the whole time. But for him to be so charming, funny, also so hateable, all at the same time, where you just like have this mixed bag of emotions where you're like,
and the
why
thing is,
I like you?
They gave us so many of these little glimpses into why he is the way he is, starting with like probably episode like 3 or 4, I can't recall, where, you know, you find out that basically his parents were utter and complete psychos. His mom once bit a chunk out of him, and his aunt is like, it was a small chunk. He had to watch his aunt have sex with his dad many times. One time when he was playing toy soldiers in the corner. His childhood, his upbringing resulted in him being monstrous and very confused and totally disconnected from reality, the real world, anything that would resemble it. Which is funny because in contrast, his aunt murders, what's his, Ivan? The small boy who, like, when you get these glimpses of Peter, you have to imagine he was probably a little bit like Ivan as a boy. At one point, the aunt says, he was always smashing something, whether it was a toy or a footman. Like, he clearly did really messed up shit when he was a little kid, too, and was a little psychopath. Mm-hmm. But for whatever reason, the aunt, and many other people apparently, had the vision and the idea that Peter would be this phenomenal leader that would take them into the next level after Peter the Great was gone. Ivan, on the other hand, was a problem that needed to be discarded. It seemed like Catherine's downfall was bringing too many people into the circle. She couldn't stop telling, like, she ends up telling the aunt and asks her, like, where would you stand if this were to happen? Like, too many people know by the time it's go time that it's almost like there's no way this is going to go right.
Yeah. Very, very tough thing to pull off here, this coup, though, right? Because you need the numbers. You need the backing for when this inevitably goes down.
Yes.
So, as the orchestrator of a coup, that's part of your main job, is reading the situation and deciding when you can bring somebody over.
Right.
Now, that is obviously the scariest thing that you could possibly do, because you have to admit basically what you are doing to somebody and see what they give back to you, as we see with Leo, who doesn't get the right response and then has to murder somebody with a rock.
Yeah. Velementov is like, grab a rock. One of the best characters in the season, by the way.
Velementov also, yeah.
That fat fuck. He's unbelievable, dude. He was so funny. He would go from, like, varying stages of drunkenness, like blackout slurring drunk Velementov versus, like, put together but sort of drinking Velementov. Like, I have a question. The season ends with her running back to the palace, looking Velementov in the eye, and nodding her head.
Yeah.
And he fires a pistol shot up in the air, and the credits roll. What was the significance?
So
of this?
they're basically, what has happened there is that Peter and Catherine have had their conversation, and basically, like, he's got Leo, and he's basically saying, like, call this off, or
Leo
dies. Everything's at kind of like a stalemate at that moment. So there's a ceasefire. Everybody's guns are down, basically. And so she goes, has the meeting with Leo, and is basically like,
sorry, guy.
I have to sacrifice you, essentially, because we have to do this.
So that's a continuation.
When she nods at Velementov, that's, let's go. We're continuing the fight.
The coup.
The coup.
Holy hell.
Yeah.
So when the credits started to roll right after the pistol shot, was one of the moments in television history for me where I yelled, no, no, because it was it was a great cliffhanger, man, to set us there and wait for season 2. So much happened in season 1 that, unlike with Perry Mason, there's literally no way I can complain about the way the finale unfolded. If it had all gone to plan, we would have lost arguably the best character on the show, Peter, which could not happen.
Right.
Halfway through the season, I was like, well, this guy's not going to die.
Yeah.
Because this is a fucking unbelievable character story. They always give you, like, what does it say, a partially true or
exactly
a sort of true story
to that
at the
end,
beginning.
Catherine lives with Peter in history, and I'm not going to get this completely accurate.
Occasionally true story, excuse me.
Yeah. But in history, she was the wife of Peter for, I want to say, like 20 years before overthrowing him. So I certainly don't anticipate the show to try to make that type of leap. In fact, it's possible that we get some type of coup here in second season, although that seems sort of unlikely that it all goes to plan. But yeah, anyways, she has to live with Peter and make do and make that work for many, many years in real history.
And the conversation they have is essentially her saying, look, you suck at this. I have great ideas. I want to be able to shape Russia in a way that will also reflect greatly upon you, right?
Yeah, her pitch there is basically to, like, let him be a
shitty monster,
just
psycho,
Lothario, just go about having sex with Gregor's
fucking
wife,
drinking,
just
hunting.
being a debaucherous, shithead,
Mm-hmm.
and I'll run it, and you get to live the life that you really want to live.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
Because that's obviously happened many, many times throughout history, even recently, in our lifetime, perhaps. But it sets us up for a season 2 where I imagine we'll get to see Catherine implementing more of her ideas while also having to continue to handle Peter. I just wonder sort of where their relationship goes.
I don't
here.
know how they're going to pull that off. That's one of the
great question marks.
That's one of the great questions, and why season 2 just absolutely has to happen, and hopefully
as soon as possible.
Doesn't take 3 years. Yeah.
I was shocked
because I'm totally interested to see how they do that. Like, because they kind of have to keep coexisting.
Yes, they just gave us the setup for them to have to continue coexisting. Yeah. They have to. I was shocked that Grigor didn't end up being, like, somehow party to the... What's the name of the dude who they made him shave his face?
Don't remember.
I'm going to have to look it up.
Yeah.
Shaved face guy. That dude's attempt at murder, at assassinating Peter was so...
laughably bad.
So awful. What the hell was he doing? Hey, here's the thing. If you're trying to pull off an assassination of a leader or something, maybe, just maybe, peek into the room you're entering before you enter. See who's in there, if your target's in there. You don't just burst into the door and be like, oh, wait a minute, this is a couple women and a random guy.
Try a bit of stealth on for size.
What do you even if
my man.
He's huge, granted. Hard for him to pull off stealth, but still. I'm just happy he got a good lay in there before before it was all said and done. But my God, man, what were you thinking? That was just a terrible attempt that at no point had any chance of actually coming to fruition.
Yeah.
Bummed me out bad, and I can't find this fucker's name. So
Why do I want to say Demetrius?
Now he goes on because it's something crazy like that. Let me keep scrolling. I'll find it. You want to tell us a story about, I don't know, something?
No, man. I got nothing else for you.
Son of a bitch. Where is this guy's freaking name? How many characters are in this show? I'm down to Swedish Soldier, and I don't see this guy.
You probably already passed it.
That's impossible. That's impossible. Okay, yeah. Arcady was the other guy who was on the hunting assassination trip with Leo.
Yeah.
Who, oh my God, the episode where he tortures every single member of the fucking court was unreal. The torture methods, the fact that Catherine went down and was like, I want some Rostov. Thank you, dude. Wow, that was going to haunt me for the rest of the day. Yeah, Rostov's attempt at assassinating Peter was just absolutely trash. He was even given the perfect opportunity with a secret entrance to go get his ass. You could say Rostov is the reason this entire thing goes completely sideways,
he did
man.
Botch it. He very much botched it.
And the fact that Marina, whatever her name was, let him in, showed him that thing. She unraveled the whole deal. Her love for the Archbishop and refusal to let Mariel, sorry. Yeah. Refusal to let him die, let him go. Obviously very problematic for the Empress and her attempt at this coup. God, there were a lot of good characters and good shit on this show. Orlo killing a guy, then trying to be like the guy who always talks about the time he killed a guy. Hilarious. I need as many of these people back next year as possible. If Leo is the sacrifice, so be it.
I think Leo is going to be the sacrifice.
I must have Velementov. I must have the Archbishop.
I think you're getting all those players back.
Orlo, I've got to have him. Got to continue to see how this dork turns into a hard, rough Russian. Phenomenal first season. I mean, honestly, all things considered, through the finale, this was like I'm gonna say a 93 out of 100 for me. It was probably my favorite show I've watched this year.
Yeah, it certainly ranks extremely high for me. I really, it's hard to find a fault with this show this season.
Incredibly well written,
just very
incredibly well
written.
acted. Cool spin on a period piece with a shit ton of comedy inserted.
Yeah.
Occasionally a true story. But always fun, Barrett. Always fun. Loved The Great, loved season 1. Yeah, I don't know, 93, 94, somewhere in there.
Yeah,
A-.
yeah.
Man, I can't A+ unless it's like.
Oh, I'm A+ing, baby.
You're A+ing?
I'm A+ing.
I'm gonna give it some breathing.
Yeah, let it. Yeah, you just finished. Let it breathe.
It's like it's sitting in the decanter still for me. I've got to let it breathe a little bit, and then I'll tell you exactly how good it was. But it's at least an A-. At least, I mean, if this doesn't make my top 3 TV shows I watched this year, I will be utterly and completely shocked, and it will mean that we are in for a hell of a back half. These last 4 months of the year in terms of television, which I doubt very much. The Great was great, Barrett.
The Great was great.
Aptly named. The Great. And that will do it for today's episode of OCC. Huge thanks to our sponsor for today, Felix Gray, for supporting the show. FelixGrayGlasses.com/OCC. You can also support us directly in exchange for 3 or 4 ad-free premium episodes every month by going to patreon.com/oystersclamscockles. Patreon is simply a platform that allows us to bring you more podcasts directly without third-party advertising involved. You simply back the show with a minimum $5 pledge to join the Crustacean Nation or a minimum $10 pledge to join the Mollusk Militia. The former gives you 3 additional ad-free episodes every month. The latter, 4 additional ad-free episodes every month, the 4th of which is your Mollusk Militia exclusive hotline call extravaganza, where you can call into your Mollusk Militia exclusive hotline that is it's much, much easier to get played than it would be on our normal OCC hotline, which we never even hit anymore because it's so freaking backlogged at this point. But, yeah, go to patreon.com, patreon.com/oystersclamscockles. Join either the Crustacean Nation or the Mollusk Militia. Support the show. Get more episodes of OCC ad-free on a monthly basis. Last week, Barrett and I did our top 5 movies of all time on Patreon, which was one of the more difficult and then fun discussions we've ever had.
That was a good one. That was a very good one.
We had some crossover, not as much as I anticipated, probably. And just in general, I thought it was sort of a well-rounded discussion of some of the best movies ever made, especially in our lifetime, right? A lot of our top all of our top 5s, I think. Were any of our top 5s made before we were born? I don't think they were.
They were.
Oh. Well, we
Obviously.
can't tell people
We
that.
can't tell them, though.
We can't
We
tell
can't
them.
say
You got to
it.
go listen to the episode. But Barrett and I, we break down it's like, I think I had like 35 of my favorite movies ever on a list. We talk about all these different movies, best movies ever made, and then we pick our 5 favorites. Barrett, in no particular order, just his 5 favorites, me ranking specifically my 1 through 5. Go join patreon.com/oystersclamscockles, pledge, support the show, and go listen to that episode and watch it if you want to. Right now, patreon.com/oystersclamscockles. Follow us on social media for updates on the best in TV and film, and also when new episodes drop. We're on Instagram at oystersclamscockles. We're on Twitter at clamsandcockles. We're on facebook.com/oystersclamscockles. You can follow me, Ross Bolin, at WRBolin, at WRBOLEN, on Twitter, Instagram, and Snapchat, and listen to my other podcast, the Ross Bolin Podcast, also brought to you by Bolin Media, available wherever you listen to OCC. We have a focus on mental health, but it's comedy, humor. We talk a lot about animals, current events, news, history, pirates, serial killers on occasion. We have a blast. The Ross Bolin Podcast, available wherever you listen to OCC. And Mr. Dudley, where can we hear more of your voice and follow you on the social mediums and medias?
At Barrett Dudley, Instagram and Twitter, and then check out the Club Cool Podcast wherever you're listening to OCC. We meet at the intersection of style and pop culture. One new episode each week. It's a great time over there. Ross, the thing about pirates, there's no new pirates.
I'm running out of pirates.
I'm sure you're coming to the end on the pirates.
I found one last week, and I was like, oh, thank God, because it's been months. I mean, the first couple years of the show, we did so many damn pirates. Literally,
You
by the way,
exhausted your pirate supply.
exhausted the pirate supply, and nobody knows anything about any of these pirates. They're all their birth and death accounts are
Who
all
knows?
over the.
Yeah.
I just end up
They're
making
pirates.
up stuff. I am the history book now. Yeah. Anyway, great show today. Thank you all for being here. Hope you enjoyed all of Perry Mason Season 1 on HBO as much as we did, as well as The Great on Hulu. If you have thoughts, feelings, concerns, any other shows aside from Yellowstone that you think Barrett and I should consider watching, even if it's something older or new, really doesn't matter. Throw them at us. Hit us with them. We've been hearing from a lot of y'all about a couple different shows that are on HBO that you're interested in hearing from us on. We are considering them as well, but keep coming at us on social media at WRBolin, at Barrett Dudley, at the Oysters, Clams, Cockles account on Instagram, at Clams and Cockles on Twitter. Holler at us. Let us know what y'all are feeling, what's coming up that you'd like to hear us cover, and what you want more of. Happy to oblige, we are. Until our next helping, goodbye, friends.